Hello my dudes and dudettes, my name is Impact and I'm here to deliver on my promise of more League of Legends content. First and foremost, a couple of things to have in mind. I will be redoing and updating some of my old guides, and this is one of those. If you want to check out the old video, I'll leave you guys a link in the description below. Secondly, I will try to release 2 videos instead of just one for every guide I update. So instead of just having an English version, I'll also be uploading a Portuguese version to the channel that you may or may not prefer. Last but not least, if you do end up enjoying this video, and I'm doing this because I think it's like a trend on YouTube now, do leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Oh, and follow me on Twitter or Twitch, whatever. Anyway, right, onward to the video itself. I'll be covering the basics and dynamics of the laning phase from a support standpoint. Team fighting, harassing, positioning, warding, and other topics will be featured in future videos. I think we can all agree that talking about everything in a single video would be just kind of, mind-blowingly silly and boring. Perhaps boring as well. First of all, I'd like you to think about your champions as being fueled by resources, not unlike an RTS like StarCraft, where you have to collect gas and crystals to build structures. In the case of League of Legends, we're talking about the holy trinity of resources: health, mana, and gold. The more resources you have, the more your enemies will feel your presence in lane. Health and mana will be essential in establishing lane dominance as well as getting proper positioning. Individually speaking, health will allow you to stay in lane and thus be traded for experience and gold, which will be even more obvious if you get a kill or get killed. Mana is similar in the sense that you can use it to exchange for HP in case of sustained supports, shields, poke, or even engagements. The more mana you have, the riskier it is to face you. The same thing applies to your opponent. Finally, there is gold. The more gold you have, the more and better items you'll be able to acquire. And to keep the analogy going, just like in StarCraft, you do not want to keep too much gold in your pocket. Time your recalls wisely and try to make your trips back to the base as well as purchases as efficient as possible. Also, I need to say it again, you do not win lane just because you have more kills than your opponent. It helps, but by itself, it is pretty meaningless. Let's all let go of that misconception before we move on. Your main goal is to use your resources to acquire more gold than your enemies. Later on, you'll be looking to establish a better map control. Getting a tower before your opponents may not always be the best course of action, but you can also take advantage of it. Push the lane and take the newly acquired vision toward the enemy jungle and thus provide your whole team with a so much needed map control. It is important to mention that, save for a few exceptions, supports are different than AD carries in the sense that their base stats are great early on. You don't need items as much as your AD carry, so you'll be able to either make or break the lane. Your importance in the lane does go down a bit after your AD carry gets his or her first big items such as Essence, Reaver, Affinity Edge, but until then, you're the boss. Let's go over what main types of comps you'll be playing and facing in the bottom lane. Sustain lanes, poke lanes, and kill lanes. Names may vary and you may choose a hybrid style depending on whatever it is happening in any specific game. Now, and I feel like this was one of the biggest misconceptions that people may have gotten from the last video. The type of lane that you're playing isn't only based on what champion you or your AD carry is playing. It's your main strategy for that specific lane, which may even change over time. Sustain lanes are self-explanatory. Case in point, Soraka lanes. She heals. That's her power in lane. Sure, the silence is very important and there's poke potential, but that's her main strength. So that's what you'll be using in most games. You'll need to pick your fights carefully, playing more passively than one might like, but also being able to choose the opportune moment to harass your opponent and strike back at them. Since heal is where their power resides, if you take away the time it takes your enemies to heal, you'll have the advantage. Hence why sustain lanes usually struggle against kill lanes. On the other hand, you'll be able to counter poke lanes' long-range damage. The poke lane's power is derivative of safe and long-range damage. You'll be trying to deal as much damage to your enemies from afar as possible, while slowly acquiring more and more presence in lane by getting aggressive with your positioning as your opponent's resources start getting depleted, namely HP, thus reducing the amount of gold and XP the enemy champions will be getting. If you try to go all in without wearing down your opponent's resources first, you're probably going to have a hard time thanks to the usual lack of proper CC and burst damage. A poke lane usually also has at least one disengage tool that allows you to get away from all-in engagements early on in the game, allowing you to keep poking from afar afterwards, which is usually why it's so effective versus kill lanes. Finally, kill lanes, or all-in lanes. They're pretty much your typical solo queue lanes. Rather, they were, before Ardent Censer was a broken piece of doo-doo. As the name implies, you're looking for kills. You have a lot of burst damage and CC. Ignite is often used in these situations as well. You'll be trying to maximize your gold income by getting kills in lane and still provide tons of utility to your team later on in the game with CC or dislocating skills. Do be careful with your cooldowns though. They're typically long, so if you miss a single skill, you may not live long enough to regret it. Leona's Zenith Blade, Thresh's Hook, Blitzcrank's Rocket Grab are pretty good examples. So let me go over the tips that I gave you last time as well. Don't just let yourself get pushed into the tower. You're allowing your opponents freedom of poke. You're giving them the chance to tower dive you if a jungler's nearby. Your AD carry's losing farm because it's being taken away by the turret. The enemy supporting jungler will be able to just invade your jungle and ward earlier than usual because it won't be able to leave the tower and risk losing that precious farm. You could argue that in those situations, the enemy lane is also more susceptible to ganks. We're talking about solo queue here. Unless you're dueling with a jungler, you're the only person you can control in any given situation, in any given game. So make use of that knowledge and try to think ahead. Do everything for yourself. Don't expect anything from anyone else, especially in solo queue. Take the power, people. Also, if this happens when you're playing against a kill lane, oh boy, you're probably dead at level 6. Now, also, don't just spam your skills. Think about what you're doing. Let's say you're playing Blitzcrank. Why spam hook when you can just get the bush control and zone people away while doing so? Sometimes the threat of a skill use is better than the use itself. Try not to forget to look at your enemy's resources. We're talking HP and mana primarily here. When you use a skill, you should expect to trade in resources. Make it count. Also, level 6, there's often a huge dynamic change in lane. Sometimes a sustained lane may become a kill lane, case in point Sona with Ignite. Same thing applies to a poke lane with a support like Zyra. Maybe you're facing Nami and you're playing a kill lane. Maybe you're doing really good until she gets to level 6, but suddenly she gets an ultimate and your engage is completely countered. I mean, just don't let yourself be caught off guard. You have to predict, analyze. What will you do if you were your enemy? Would you swap playstyles? Are you that far ahead that you don't really have to worry too much? The point is, both at turning point from level 1 to 2 and 5 to 6, expect your enemy's moves to change drastically, and expect them to engage if they get there first. Now, whether you're playing a poke lane, sustain lane, or even a kill lane, you should know when to harass your opponents, even if just with auto attacks. You can control the bushes in your lane, and even if you have to use a control ward, and strike your opponents if they get too close. If you do this, do try to keep yourself in range of your AD carry so you can follow up on any play made by you or your opponents. If you do end up using a control ward, your opponents will also probably try to contest it, meaning you can use that opportunity to damage them further. This can also be used as a bait strategy that will probably work until you get to, like, Diamond. I think it's pretty obvious that skills such as Blitzcrank's or Thresh's Hook will be harder to dodge if you're in the fog of war, so consider that as well. Notice if your minions' HP are low. If they are, chances are the AD carry is going for a last hit. Use that window to hit him even once and get some damage done. You can also try to harass as soon as you finish pushing away. Your opponents are going to have to pull back and you'll have your chance. Unless they decide to hit you back, in which case they'll also get damaged by the minions. Speaking of which, try to keep an eye on how the minion waves are before you do anything, especially before you commit to a fight. Early on, minions will do a lot of damage, especially over time, and they're not that easy to get rid of unless you either kill them or unless the Mystic minions aren't there. If you're planning on engaging on your opponents, you can try wearing down the Mystics on a wave for your AD carry first, and then go in for a surprise attack. The same thing applies to your opponents. If they're engaging and you have a full minion wave, perhaps the fight will be easier than you thought. Now, going over the tips that I gave you guys last time on how to deal with counters. Remember the pink ward tip? Yeah, well that's gone. To keep bush control, controlling the minion wave flow itself is a lot more important these days. It is one more reason not to let yourself get pushed under the turret too often, especially if your opponents have diving capabilities, with or without the jungler present. Do you also remember the taking golems tip? When the bottom lane actually took golems before they head onto the lane? If you do, you really are an old-timer. Yep, that's gone too. Not that I mind really, I feel like the blue side was always, kind of in a huge advantage because of it. What I would say though, is as a support main, is help your AD carry push the wave of level 1 so you get level 2 as soon as possible. It's a huge power spike and you'll effectively have twice as many skills as your opponent. Don't do it too fast, or your first wave will end up under the enemy's turret, making you a prime target for a first gank. That, and it will not be enough for level 2. Hit the minions once or twice, especially the Mystics, let your AD carry finish the job. Now, is the enemy bot lane ahead of you? Are they freezing the wave and not letting you get close? Well, sucks for your AD carry, but it's probably a sign. See ya! Get your ass out of the bottom lane and roam. Now, please do not gank a losing lane. Look at your teammates and how their lanes are behaving, how their lanes are going. Gank the winning bets. Get the rest of your team rolling so they can pick up the slack at bottom. This may even end up making the enemy bot lane follow up on the roam and leave your AD carry free to farm. Got some vision control on the enemy jungle? Time to start pushing the lane then. If the enemy jungler ganks, you'll know and you'll be able to back off. If he doesn't, your enemies will be losing farm to the turret. If they want to engage on you, they'll have to do it on top of your creeps, so that's extra damage for you. Still, be wary of those engages, especially if you're facing an opponent that can keep you under the turret and make you take some shots from the tower itself, like Nautilus, Blitzcrank, or Thresh. I gotta say this again, pushing your wave denies your enemies the chance to be aggressive. Go play some ARAMs as well with friends. Seriously, it'll be especially good if you're facing a lot of people that have skill shots. Whether you're having fun or not, you're still practicing not getting hit by them. And considering the bot lane is 3 members shorter, you'll get the hang of it pretty quickly, I reckon. Also, warding the bushes, even the lane ones, can help you realize when the enemy support is going to use his key skill, like Blitzcrank's rocket grab, and help you dodge it. Take advantage of that window of opportunity, harass, and capitalize. Yay, capitalism, and we're done. I think I didn't exactly go too deep on the subjects that I talked about last time, but at least I was able to update a couple of things, and I think overall the video is a lot more enjoyable to watch now. Holy shit, I was boring as heck to listen to. Still am though. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, don't forget, like, subscribe, comment, tell me I'm an idiot. I am, truly. See you guys next video, or next stream. Peace.